All right. Well, I guess let's go ahead and get started. Um, Hope everyone had good holidays. And looks like we have Kisensum here. Uh, Guys, would you want to start talking about the ChargePoint driver now that we've got more time? We don't really have a very full agenda here. I was going to make sure we had time for ChargePoint and other things. The tagging service. Chandrika is back from vacation and can talk about that again. Those are really the only two set agenda items. Uh, so if
Yeah.
you want to go ahead, Kasensum, then it's all yours.
Okay. Um, I guess I can talk about the ChargePoint driver. A way to share my screen. Am I muted? Oh, sorry. This is James. I'm from Kisensum. I was kind of in charge of developing this ChargePoint driver. Um,
There you go. I
present.
made you a presenter, so you should be able to share your screen now.
Yep. Is that my screen coming up? I'm getting a thumbs up from Bob. Perfect. Um, so, for those of you that don't know, kind of the ChargePoint driver, ChargePoint is a uh, brand of electric vehicle charging station, and the objective was to create an interface for VOLTTRON to talk to these electric vehicle charging stations. Um, So, kind of going over the scope of what the functionality that we've got. You kind of see the interface with the ChargePoint API, which is an API that ChargePoint publishes themselves. Kind of the main functions that were within the scope of this driver are here, and it's really getting information about the charging station. Name, kind of basic static specifications, and then primarily looking at being able to throttle restrict charging. So rather than a default behavior of driving an electric vehicle up to a station and plugging it in and then immediately start charging, you can either delay that charging kind of through in charge point terms called shedding load, or you can, if you don't want to completely shut it off, you can throttle it back and at least reduce the amount of load going through. Is kind of the main interactive functionality. In addition to getting the static information, you can kind of get static whether or not a given station is currently in use, whether it's available in use. So and then you can get alarm stats. The other interactive feature, you can clear the alarms on a given station, and then the rights that you have, your logging credentials, what the rights of that station are with respect to how you've logged in. So I was going to go over kind of how to configure that and what that looks like. So the two kind of configuration files. So there's the driver spec that comes in, and the four pieces of information that are required are really the username and password to get into ChargePoint. So in order to interface with a ChargePoint station, you need an account within ChargePoint that gives you access to a given station. And so the device spec requires a username and a password. These are given by ChargePoint. The station that you're looking, the device that you're looking to interface with, this again is a ChargePoint driven identification. And then something that I've called cache expiration, and that's really how long you want the results of any given API call to to last. It's expensive to make an API call, and it'll take a couple seconds. I'll show as I run this in a second. But for here, for example, 40 seconds. So if I make a status request to a charge station for the next 40 seconds, as I do continual scrape, I think I've got it, set to scrape every 5 seconds. So those continual scrapes after the first one will be able to just use the cached information for 40 seconds, just to kind of speed up that process. And the other, so that's configuring the device, and then a CSV configuring the points on the device. And there's a README. I'm not going to kind of go through it, but that explains in detail every one of the points that's listed in the CSV, each column across the CSV, the configuration file, saying what the name of the your attribute name that it needs to be, so that VOLTTRON can access it. Whether or not it needs to be charge stations. Most charge point stations have 2 ports, so they can charge up to 2 vehicles at a time. Some of these configuration parameters have to do with the station as a whole. Some of them have to do with a given port on the station, and some of them can be either one. You can define it at the station level or at the port level. But various config things. Again, that's outlined in the README that you can find there. To run this similar, I know last meeting there was a demo of the great UI that I think is coming. We'd love to get this hooked up at some point to that, but there is a utility that I wrote to auto-generate this CSV file, which takes a username, password, and station ID. So in the charge point, it's under services core. All of this code, by the way, is services. It's in the master driver agent interfaces. There's this charge point. I call it credential check, just to check the credentials. Bob just noted this particular file to create CSVs is not yet checked into VOLTTRON. I think we've got plans to have a pull request in by the end of the day. So I can demo that really quickly. So if I run this credential check program, it asks for a username, a password. So then it's logging into ChargePoint. Congratulations, I gave successful login credentials. And then it needs an example ID.
Hey, Jeremy, can you hear me? This is Bob.
Yeah, I can hear you.
Okay, so somehow James just got knocked off here. He's trying to get back on.
Yeah, no problem. There he is. I'll make him a presenter again. Okay, he should be good to go.
You made your presenter, GC?
Yep.
Okay. Oh, I hear you now.
Cool. And hopefully, awesome. Sorry, we're on a. So I put in credentials. It checked my IP, logged in. I gave it an example station so that it could ping, and it created this new config file. As you can see, that creates the entire CSV configuration. I think so the question, Bob's here, talking through why this isn't a standard CSV that you can just kind of throw in, and why we need this configuration. How ChargePoint, your credentials don't necessarily give you access to every one of these points. So some points are not accessed. Whether you're an admin or just a user, ChargePoint gives you different access. And also stations can be configured separately. This level, for example, is a US configuration for ChargePoint stations in Europe. It's called mode. And that's just kind of quirks of ChargePoint. So in order to not populate this CSV with all sorts of points that don't exist on a given station, that's kind of the purpose of this utility, so that it's configured for all of the points for that. That's why there's why we enter the station ID. So this station 134033 is configured to accept all of these points, and my credentials for that station. A different station with a different ID might be configured slightly differently, specifically around pricing. So you can get what the pricing is, the unit price, how a given station is configured, and depending on the pricing for station, whether it's configured for these. I think there's some other ones that rather than doing per session, it can be, I think it's something called unit price per first hour, and you charge a certain rate for the first hour and then unit per price thereafter. You can see that's not included here because that's not how this particular station is configured.
One thing just to confirm, can you hear me?
Yep.
If you know that you have, say, 10 stations and the permissions and the configuration is all the same, then you would only need to run this once.
Yes. So once that's run and once the device is configured, so once you have your ChargePoint config, which then is given, it points to that CSV file that's created, and that's loaded into the config store. Then you're kind of ready to go up and running. So on PyCharm here, I have VOLTTRON running. And if I start up my driver, you can see it takes a little time. I've got it set for 5-second scrapes. So I think it goes through a scrape or two. There you go. And it's hit, and we're publishing all of the points for all of the devices. And that comes through, I think, on a 5-second as it's scraping. And I think that's more or less all I've got. Now we're set up. We're reading all of these, and for the two, if we wanted to, for the two, you can clear alarms, the interactive calls, clearing alarms, or setting load shed, or clearing the state of a shed load. That's now all possible. I think that's all I've got.
All right, thanks. Any questions for James? All right. Okay. If there's no questions, then Chandrika, did you want to talk about the tagging service spec?
Sure, I can do that. Let me share my screen. Can you see my screen?
Yep.
Sorry. Okay. I think Kyle went through this a while ago, but I'm not sure how many people were there in that office. So I'm just beginning to start thinking about implementation of this. So this would be a good opportunity to go over this again. And if anybody has comments or questions, this would be a good time to discuss that. Okay, we're planning to add a tagging service for VOLTTRON so that you can query different topics based on tags instead of just the topic name pattern. Currently, you can specify either a single topic, a list of topic, or a topic name pattern. But for that, which you mean, this means that all your devices of a specific type needs to be named with the same pattern so that you can search it easily. So to overcome that constraint, we want to add tags. And for this, instead of going with free-form tags, we are going to use Project Haystack's tags. Project Haystack defines a predefined set of tags for this domain. For example, it has a hierarchy of site, equipment, and point, and for each site, it has a list of already predefined set of tags, and the tags are grouped based on categories. For example, for an equipment, and if it's an AHU, these are the valid tags, and if it's a chiller plant, these are the valid tags, so on and so forth. So the idea is that we use only these tags, and we'll was that a question? Yeah, okay. So that's the idea. We plan, and initially there might not be any validation for the very first version, whether it is whether the user is using the right tag for the right equipment type. So there might not be any validations, but that's we'll add that as the next version. The API would have this service would have the following features. The users would be able to add tags for a single point or multiple tags, and you can tag not just a point but any of the tag prefixes like a campus or a building or a device or a point. And users should be able to add multiple topics, so you should be able to define a whole bunch of tags based on a topic name or a topic name pattern. For example, you can say all devices or AHU star in this building add these set of tags, and then add the specific tags for each point separately. So you should be able to define these as a simple JSON format like key colon value, tag colon value format in a file, and then make an RPC call with this file, with this key value pair file, and it'll tag all the topics at one go. So you need not tag like individually. We also want to be able to, once you tag this, we want to be able to query it. And when you do a query, the user should be able to query based on say a topic, and also tags on the prefix of the topic. So you should be able to say, give me all topics with equipment type as AHU, and in building 1, and in this having so and so property. So you should be able to do that in a single query, and you should be able to allow for skip and count, because there might be, if you query based on a site level tag, there might be multiple topics, so you should be able to do a pagination, so you should be able to do a count and skip. So that's the overall features that we want to go for at the first version, and these are the list of APIs. You should be able to get the list of tags for a group. Like I said, you could say, okay, what are all the valid tags for a site? What are the valid tags for a chiller plant? Or what are the valid tags for an AHU unit? So you should be able to get that. And you have a API to get the list of groups. So you can say, okay, what are all the valid groups for, oh, sorry, the first one is to get the valid groups, which will probably return things like site and building and equipment. And once you have a group, you could say, okay, get me all the tags for that group. So you can say, okay, get me all the valid tags for a site. And you can you can also get, okay, if somebody has already tagged a topic name or a topic name prefix, you can say, okay, get me all the tags that are available on a topic. And you can say, get me all topics by tags. So you can say tag by topics or topics by tags. You should be able to do both. And to find topics by tags, you could either give a detailed query condition similar to how you would probably do an SQL where clause, right? So you could say condition equal to where tag 1 is equal to this, or tag 2 is equal to this, and tag 2 greater than this, tag 3 greater than this, or use a regular expression, say, give me everything with tags like this. So you can give a big condition like this, or if you have simple query criteria, like say, okay, where I just want to see all topics where it is an equipment, and if it has a tag of equipment, it has a tag of equipment type as an AHU, and has this point 1. And if you want to do something simple like that, then you could just pass one of these parameters, like which is an AND, or a regular expression AND, or a regular expression OR. What these do is whatever key value pairs you give, it'll combine all those. So if you say in AND equal to, in the AND condition, if you say A equal to 1, B equal to 2, it'll just say, it'll run the query where tags A equal to 1 and A equal to B equal to 2. And if you give it an OR, it'll just do A equal to 1 or B equal to 2. So that's what these do. So it's going to construct, based on whatever you pass, it's going to construct the query and filter down the topic names for you. And count and skip parameters are used to restrict or paginate the query result. So, and if you want to, there's no single API to get the data based on tags. So you want to first query for the topic names based on tags, and then query the data from the resultant topics. The main reason is because a reason for this is when you do get me topics based on tags, it's going to query based on the current value. So it's up to the user to periodically check, okay, if there are new tags, or if there are new topics for these tags. So it's only the API itself is going to check based on whatever tags are there at that point of time. Any questions so far? Okay. That's the API for querying. So if you want to add tags, like if you have a brand new, if you want to start adding tags from scratch for an existing system, you should be able to do that using the add tags API. And what you do is essentially it's a dictionary object. You say, okay, this is, you say topic name pattern : and then a list of tags, tag 1 value, comma, tag 2 value, comma, tag 3 value. You can do this for multiple topics, and you can do that, or if you want to do it for a single topic, you could do that as well. You can just say a topic prefix and then send tags for that topic alone. So you could use either of this API to add tags to your system. So this is an example. So if you say, currently if you have like building 1, device A1, A2, and A3, and B1 and B2, so this example gives you, how you might want to load an initial set of tags. For example, you can say for all types, say device A star, set the description as like building 1 chilled water system, and equipment, it's an equipment, and it's in this building, and chilled is true, it's water, and it's a secondary loop is equal to true. So these are the set of tags, and I'm saying apply this to all topics of this pattern. So this, and similarly for all the points in device 1, I can say make the site as this, site ref as this, because it's in this building, and say its kind is Boolean and point is a true. So I'm saying these are all points, and you say point equal to true for all points, and if you say equipment equal to true if it's a equipment level. So these tags did show whether it is an equipment or a point. So this is one way of initially bootstrapping your system with tags. So you can say, okay, all the generic tags for a whole bunch of devices or a whole bunch of points in a device or a device type, you could do that using this. So you specify this whole thing in a file, and then make an RPC call to add tags method with a pointer to that file. And then once you do that, so you have all your generic tags for a device or a device type or building or campus loaded, and then you go ahead and use the add tags or add topic tags to add specific values. So for example, if there is a tag that you want to associate only with device A1 and not A2, then you do that by calling the add topic tags, say topic prefix is equal to A1, and then set the list of tags. For example, the ID tag, which is unique for each topic or topic prefix, is something that you would want to add one by one and not in a batch process. So this is an example of without a pattern, you can add this. And once you do that, you can say you could have queries. So this is an example of a query. I'm saying give me all topics that has a command. So command is a Boolean tag, which is just if it's there or not. So you can say anything that has a tag called command and has an equipment which is a chilled, which has the tag chilled. So that's how you would do a query, and that's pretty much it. Any questions? Okay.
Okay.
Jamal?
Yeah. If there's any follow-up questions or anything, just let us know. Okay. Well, so that is that's all the agenda that we had for today. Does anyone have any questions, or if anybody is doing research that they'd like to share, I'd be very interested in that. Like Kisensum presented their ChargePoint driver. If anybody wants to talk about what they're doing with VOLTTRON in their research, that would be really great. Is anyone willing to share? Nobody's jumping at the chance. All right, but hopefully, as I've said previously, we'd really like to hear from people, and this is an opportunity to get your research out in front of other people in this community who are doing similar things, and it's a great chance to potentially make connections or get advice on what you're doing. So, I encourage people to make use of that. If there are no other questions or comments, then I think we can call it an office hours.
Okay.
All
Thanks,
right.
John.
Yep. Thanks, everybody.
Bye. Bye.
Bye.